Taurus with all the books. I'm back again. I'm on fire in July, okay? So I gotta wrap up my June books because I gotta clean up this mess here, okay? I got books all over the place. They must be shelved. And to do that, I must chat. I must chat first. So I finished The Thousand Autumns of Jacob de Zoet by David Mitchell. And thank you so much, Leo, for explaining the pronunciation here. Spot on, Leo, spot on. I am officially a David Mitchell groupie now. This is my first David Mitchell, and I'm all about it. Okay, maybe not, because this one was historical fiction, and I don't think the rest of his are, but I'm definitely going to be reading them to find out. Heidi's a fan and Mel's a fan, so I'm fairly confident that I'm going to join the fan club. Fairly confident. This is set in Japan in the late 1700s, I think 1799, yes. The Dutch colonizers, they're not colonizing at the time, but they're working on trade deals. The Japanese are smart in making these foreigners stay on an island offshore. But yeah, there's so many brilliant things about this book. David Mitchell's command of linguistics is so very impressive. So very impressive. His sense of humor is like so right there for me. It's a combination of extreme intelligence paired with middle school boy, and I am so there for that. And he does this thing that I love in literary fiction, where he uses little vignettes on the side with just things that are happening off scene, or out of focus, out of the primary spotlight, and layers them with meaning to the themes and the storyline that's happening at the time. And yeah, and then the weird twist in the middle, oh my gosh. The ending was a little bit not quite, but the rest of it, his writing was just a treat for me. Just a treat for me. Then I finished The Far Field by Madhuri Vijay. This is a brilliant debut. So good. This is a woman from southern India who has grown up with a mother who has just really never been comfortable in her own skin. Very angst-filled woman. A father who loves his wife and daughter, but just gets immersed in work to cope with the situation. The daughter that's grown up just as you may in this situation. And yeah, so you get this narrative, the background story of the family, and then you get the modern narrative with the mother having passed away. You don't know exactly what's happened, and the daughter decides to travel to Kashmir in search of a traveling salesman that the mother made this connection with in the daughter's childhood. And the daughter just thinks, if I find him and find out what happened there, maybe I will understand my mother more. So the story itself is very intriguing and compelling. It doesn't resolve in a way for me that I would have appreciated the story itself. However, the storyline, these characters layered over the political scene between India as a whole and the region of Kashmir, and the political tension there is just brilliant. What she does thematically with this storyline and this political situation is just so brilliant. So yes, highly recommend if you are interested in Indian literature, thematic literature, you like to think deep. Yeah, that was a good one. I finally finished my Zora Neale Hurston compilation. So Mules and Men was the last one in here that I needed to read. And this one was nonfiction, part of her travels as a Guggenheim Fellow in the South. So this is mostly in North Florida, which is like very southern. I should know, born and raised there. Hear me talk. I really related to that portion because the dialect, Zora is really good with capturing people and their stories and how they interrelate and their dialects, their speech patterns, their thought patterns. She's so good with that. And that was what she was doing in the Guggenheim Fellowship. She was recording the Southern culture in the Black community. So I just really related. It sounded like home to me. And then the second portion of this book is down in Louisiana, in the voodoo community, or hoodoo community as she calls it. And that was interesting too. A little bit more odd, but very interesting as well. So very much enjoyed this. I'm loving Zora Neale Hurston, and these are probably her 3 best. And then I did a couple buddy reads with Ange. We read Madame Will You Talk. This, you know, I never finished my Martha, I keep saying Martha Stewart, it's Mary Stewart. I never finished the Mary Stewart series because my buddy readers had already read a couple, 3 prior to me joining. So I finally got to this one. This was set in France. Yes, I believe. No, or is it Rome? No, southern France, sorry. But there were car chase scenes, which I typically don't like, but Mary's got a couple good ones. This was one of them. Just a fun travel read for me. Perfect for that. And then we read A Cat, a Man, and Two Women by Junichiro Tanizaki. This is the guy that wrote the Makioka Sisters, and I've not read that yet. I'm really wanting to. I thought this was written and published in, it was published in 1990 is what I'm saying. It is published in 1990, but I mistakenly thought it was written recently, but Ange corrected me. It's written in 1918, so that makes so much more sense. But this is an odd little book. It's so very odd. So makes me more curious about like the Makioka Sisters, because that was so odd. And then, do you hear that? I finished War and Peace. I know, right? I took a page from Justin from Ghost Reader's book, and I just powered through it. Can't speak. I just powered through it on audio. So yeah, what can I say? What can I say about this? What I can say is I am enjoying tremendously the conversations with Charlotte and Joe, who I am buddy reading this with. I'm really just mooching off of their hard annotating work, okay? But I'm enjoying that conversation tremendously and getting a lot out of it. The book itself, so what shall I say? Just briefly, because, you know, everybody knows. I think, me personally, I would enjoyed someone, maybe there's a book out there, but someone just taking the essay bits and putting them in a separate volume and letting me read them as essays. I would have gotten a lot out of this that way. The storyline didn't really intrigue me all that much. I did like the character development with Pierre and Natasha over the course of the story and how they, developed in the end. I really am charmed by the thought of this being a serial novel and people getting monthly installments. And I think that delivery is how this is intended to be read. But we're modern readers and that's harder to get in that mindset. Thematically, I liked some things he said. For example, the bit about history driving the story of mankind and how it's not really individuals that have changed history. It's history driving the story, and that history uses, I don't know, read the book. Also, it's kind of brilliant the way he starts out in the front, the glory of war in his, story narrative, and you can see people getting like caught up in it and rah, 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 Russia. And then later in the second volume, he reins it in and, he catches you in that really, the trauma of war and maybe war is not a game kind of thing. So really good job there. So yeah, I'll never read it again, but if I did, I would definitely keep a tally sheet how many times he uses the word pretty and little, and sometimes even uses them together. Not overly impressed with his women. Okay, yeah. Anyway, those are just some random thoughts. It's a really big book, and a lot of people have probably said a lot of things about it. But I read it, okay? Okay, seems to be my favorite word today. This was more than okay. This was so good, so important, so hard. Eggshell Skull by Bree Lee. This is one that I had seen Jacqueline from 6 Minutes for Me recommend quite often. She's a great advocate of Australian literature, and I really appreciate that because she's recommended some great reads. This one was just spot on, very important in modern times, the times we are in. This one has a lot of triggers about sexual abuse, self-harm, and bulimia. It's a young lawyer. She's just finished law school. She's doing a year of internship with a judge and studying for, in the States we would call it the bar, but she's studying for her lawyer exams in Australia. And yeah, the judge she works with is, his cases are mostly sexual assault and sexual abuse. And the Bree, this is a memoir, I don't think I mentioned that, but Bree Lee had sexual trauma in her childhood, and so this is all very triggering for her, and it just brings it to the surface and forces her to finally deal with it. And yeah, this is a really, really important read. The thing that really got to me was pretty close in the front as far as the current political climate, but let me find that real quick so that I can tell you for sure.